You are not a victim of circumstances. You are not at the mercy of the world outside of you. The world outside is only a shadow, a reflection of the world within. Any ask, can I manifest a home, love, health, and wealth all at once? And the answer is not only yes, it is how creation was always meant to work. You are not meant to manifest one thing at a time, like someone begging from a reluctant universe. No, you are the dreamer in the dream, and the dream responds to your command. To manifest many things at once, you must begin where all things begin, in your imagination. See yourself already living in the end, not just one end, but all ends. You are not limited to one room in a mansion, you own the entire estate. Walk through every room, feel the warmth of love, the freedom of abundance, the radiance of perfect health, the peace of purpose. You do not need to worry about how, you do not need to see the staircase. You only need to stand in the feeling of fulfilled desire, and stand there, not once, but every time. Doubt not. Desires are not separate, they are threads in the same divine fabric. When you change the pattern within, the whole fabric reflects that new image. One consciousness, one state, many blessings. Your job is not to hustle, force, or chase. Your job is to accept that all things are already yours. The version of you who has it all already exists. The more you identify with that version, the more the outer world must conform. Let go of the need to obsess. Let go of timing. Plant the seed of fulfilled desire in the garden of your imagination, and then let the invisible forces water it with faith. Hold the vision, feel it real, rest in knowing, because when you do, all things will come at once, not by effort, not by chance, but because you believed and refused to let go. All that you see, all that you touch, all that you experience in this world is not the cause, it is the effect. The true cause lies in a realm the physical senses cannot grasp. It is not in the movement of the world, nor in the actions of others, nor in chance or fate. The cause lies in the unseen world of imagination. What you imagine, you give life to. What you feel as real, you call into being. The imagination is not a child's plaything. It is not idle daydreaming. It is the sacred power of creation itself. If you wish to manifest multiple things at once, begin by understanding this. Everything you desire already exists in the invisible. It is already formed, already whole, already yours, waiting only for your recognition. The imagination is not a place to escape to. It is the place you create from. It is the seedbed of your reality. Just as a tree once lived as a seed, your future lives within your inner vision. You do not manifest by trying harder. You manifest by accepting that what you hold in mind with faith and feeling must come to pass. The outer world is but a mirror. If the reflection displeases you, you do not reach out and try to adjust the mirror. You go inward and change the image within. The same is true for your desires. The same is true for your desires. To manifest many things at once, you must stop believing that each desire is separate, each goal needing its own time, its own process. That is the illusion. Time itself is a creation within imagination. What you call waiting is often just not yet believed. So you wait for something that is already yours, already done, already real. If only you would dwell in its feeling, the imagination holds no limits. It does not struggle to hold 5 visions instead of one. You can be loved, wealthy, joyful, healthy, peaceful, all in one breath, all in one moment, because all these things are merely expressions of a single truth. The state you occupy, you are not trying to get these things. You are simply becoming the person who has them. You don't chase, you assume. You don't beg, you embody. You don't hope, You imagine is to be reborn. When you see yourself in your mind's eye with a clear and joyful knowing that what you see is true, you set creation in motion. Most people abandon their imaginal acts too soon. They plant the seed and then dig it up the next day, asking why nothing has grown. But when you trust in the unseen, when you hold the vision and feed it to be real, you allow the seed to take root, and you begin to live from the end, not toward it. There is no power outside of you creating your life. The power is within, and it is governed by what you accept as true. You can change your life by changing your assumption. You can manifest multiple things not by doing more, but by imagining more completely. You do not need more effort. You need more surrender, more belief, more in a certainty that your imagination is not lying to you. It is showing you what already is. Live now as if it was so. See yourself already there. Do not visit that vision. Dwell in it. Let it be your resting place, your home. Feel the ease of already having. Walk, speak, think, and breathe as the one who has received. To live from the end is to occupy the state of fulfillment. It is not a mental exercise of wishing or hoping. It is a conscious decision to dwell in the assumption that what you desire is already done. When you attempt to manifest, most often you think in terms of someday. You visualize one goal, maybe two, and then wonder whether you are asking for too much. You measure desires against what seems realistic, what seems possible, and in doing so you cut yourself off from the infinite. But the truth is this: you are not meant to live in fragments. You are not meant to treat your desires like rations handed out by a reluctant universe. You are allowed, no, invited, to assume all things are already yours. To live from the end simultaneously means you no longer pick and choose which dream to believe in today. You no longer delay one so another might come. You stand at the finish line of all of them now. You walk through your day not as the person hoping for change, but as the one who already received it. Your love life, your finances, your purpose, see them not as separate destinations, but as one complete state of being. This is the key to manifestation, the unified self. The version of you that already exists in imagination where all desires fulfilled is not juggling dreams, it's simply being. And you can step into that version now. You do not manifest by effort, you manifest by identity. Who are you in the unseen? Who are you when no one is watching? If you are waiting for something to change so you can feel fulfilled, you are postponing the miracle. But if you feel fulfilled first, reality bends to match that internal state. There is no conflict in imagining many things at once, because fulfillment is a singular vibration. When you feel whole, you draw all things unto yourself. Do not say, I must first fix my money before I attract love. That is a lie born of limitation. The truth is, your external world is a projection of the inner state you dwell in. When you step into the consciousness of already being loved, supported, abundant, healed, and free, the outer world will echo that belief in ways you could never predict. You do not have to fix the outer world. You do not need to manipulate people, stress over timing, or fight to prove your worth. You simply move into the state of the one who already has. You close your eyes and ask, what does it feel like to already be this version of me? And then you become it, not temporarily, not on weekends, but fully. It may feel strange at first. The old state may try to pull you back. But if you persist, your new state will become your new identity. And from that identity, all manifestations will spring. This is not about faking. It is about remembering the version of you that already holds the fulfilled desire exists now in the invisible. You are not creating it. You are selecting it. You are choosing which state to dwell in. And from that dwelling, life must respond. Walk in the state. Mentally imagine from it. Emotionally, feel it as real. Spiritually, trust it with unwavering faith. Let your thoughts, words, and actions align with it. Let your inner conversations echo the truth of it. Let your reactions reflect the knowing of it. And move forward. Time, as you experience it, is a construct of the mind, an agreement, a pattern, a rhythm your senses have been conditioned to accept. But the truth is far more liberating. Time is flexible. Time is malleable. Time is illusion. What you call later or someday is merely a version of now that you have not yet embodied. It is not distant, separate. It is simply a potential that you have yet to accept as real. Everything you desire already exists. not in the future, not far off, but here, now. In the invisible, you do not wait for it to arrive. You awaken to it by belief. When you say, I'll be happy when I achieve this, you push the experience into a future that will never come, because your assumption is rooted in delay. You are postponing your blessing by making it conditional. But the secret is this: there is only ever now. And if you do not feel it now, you cannot experience it later. The mind says, I need time to get there. The truth says, there is nowhere to get. You are already it. You collapse time by assuming the result is done. You fold the future into the present by living from the end. And in doing so, you bypass the struggle, the delay, the need to earn it. You step into the vibration where it already is, and reality must conform. This is not imagination for the sake of fantasy. This is spiritual law. The outer world bends to the inner conviction. If you assume something will happen one day, you place it forever on the horizon. But if you assume it is now, and feel from that state, then it moves into your world without effort. Not because you forced it, but because you claimed it. Let's say you want healing. If you see healing as a process that must take time, then your body will reflect that belief. But if you move into the consciousness of already being whole, already being well, and hold that state without wavering, then healing can happen in what seems like an instant, because time is only the servant of belief. Or perhaps you desire wealth. You think it must take years of saving, working, or proving yourself. But that is the belief you've accepted, and so it becomes true for you. The moment you accept that abundance can arrive now, that opportunities can appear instantly, that your life can transform in a moment, you give permission for the miraculous. You are not building these things from scratch. You are tuning yourself into the frequency of what is already done. Think of your desires like radio stations. Each has its own frequency. You don't create the music, you tune in. You don't have to make the abundance appear. You align yourself with the version of you who already lives it. And how do you do that? By feeling, by assuming, by persistently occupying the state of the wish fulfilled. When the doubts come, and they will, return to the end. Close your eyes, inhale, see it done. Feel the outcome so deeply it becomes more real than the current moment. Walk through the scene of the end again, until you no longer desire it. You simply expect it. You know it. You feel it with such certainty that your current world begins to fade in importance. This is not madness. This is power. The world changes when you do. Life moves in response to your inner conviction. So do not dabble in your desires. Do not treat them as guests. Welcome them as your reality. Wake up each day as the version of you who has already arrived. Go to bed each night in gratitude for the life that's already yours in the invisible. And as you remain faithful to that inner world, the outer world has no choice but to reflect it, all of it at once. Every outcome you seek is tied not to luck or external effort, but to a state of consciousness. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. Each desire you hold, whether it is for love, wealth, health, or success, is not a thing to be chased, but a state of being to be entered. And the moment you occupy that state fully, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, the outer world begins to shift. Not through struggle, but through reflection. States create outcomes. This is the law. A state is a mood, a mindset, a feeling tone. It is the invisible cloak you wear, often without realizing it. And that cloak determines the way life responds to you. You may say, I want to be wealthy. But if the state you habitually live in is one of lack, fear, or doubt, then wealth cannot reach you, not because you are undeserving, but because the door is closed from the inside. You must become the version of yourself who already possesses what you seek. That becoming does not require years. It requires decision. Let's say you desire love. The state of being loved is not found in another person. It is found in how you feel about yourself right now. You must embody the feeling of being cherished, seen, respected. And if you can do that inwardly, consistently, without needing the external validation to prove it, the world will rise to confirm your belief. The partner shows up. The connection deepens. The love appears not as something new, but as a reflection of the state you chose. Or maybe you seek abundance. The wealthy version of you does not constantly check the balance or worry about bills. They move with ease. They feel supported by life. They expect good things. To embody that state is to begin thinking, speaking, and behaving as if abundance is natural to you, not pretending, not lying, but aligning, deliberately stepping into the state of financial ease before any physical evidence exists. Why is this so powerful? Because consciousness is the only reality. What you are conscious of being, what you identify with, is what shapes your world. There are infinite states available to you at all times. You can move from powerlessness to power, from brokenness to healing, from lack to overflow, simply by changing the state you dwell in. The moment you shift your inner atmosphere, everything around you begins to reorganize to match it. Then you collapse the distance between desire and manifestation. You no longer wait. You welcome. You no longer hope. You no longer prepare. You receive. And as you persist in this new awareness, the illusion of time dissolves. What once seemed far off begins to unfold in your present. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You no longer live in the future. You live in the fulfilled. And in that place, all things are possible, and all things are now. The outer world is not separate from the inner. It is its mirror. And when your inner world is in harmony, free of contradiction and resistance, the external must reflect that harmony back to you. You are not required to juggle your desires, balance them, or sort them out in order of importance. You only need to align with them. For when your heart and mind are settled, steady, unified, and sure you can hold multiple fulfilled desires in a single consciousness, and reality will conform. Most people believe they must focus on one thing at a time, as though desire is a task list, and manifestation is a process of sequential order. But that belief itself creates limitation. In truth, the universe does not operate in lack, and neither should you. It is not overwhelmed by your desires. It does not need you to pick one thing and abandon the rest. What it requires is your wholeness, your certainty, your unwavering faith in the unseen. You can only hold what you are at peace with. So if you are divided within, if part of you believes and part of you doubts, then you weaken the current that brings your desires into form. That is why inner harmony is the key. It is not about intensity or repetition. It is about unity. When your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs agree without inner war, without contradiction, then manifestation becomes effortless. Can you imagine a version of yourself who already has it all? The loving relationship, the financial abundance, the radiant health, the creative success. That version of you exists now not as fantasy, but as potential. And you access that version not by working harder or waiting longer, but by assuming the inner attitude of already being that person, not a future self, a present self accepted. Imagine a peaceful lake. On the surface, you may see ripples moving in different directions, but the depth of the water is still unmoved, unified. That is your consciousness when you are aligned. The ripples, your desires can all exist as long as the depth, the belief is steady. Do not allow worry to break that stillness. Do not let doubt enter through the cracks. When you feel yourself slipping into fear, come back to center. Remind yourself, it is already mine, not because you forced it, but because you believed it. This is the kind of calm certainty that creates multiple outcomes at once. Harmony does not mean you must never feel doubt. It means you no longer dwell in it. You observe it, acknowledge it, and choose belief instead. You choose faith over fear. You choose alignment over resistance. And in doing so, you become a vessel that can carry many blessings without strain. This is the secret. You are not manifesting desires individually, you are manifesting a state where all those desires already exist as facts. Live from that state, and the multiplicity takes care of itself. Just as one seed contains the pattern for many fruits, one assumption that it is done contains the energy for many manifestations. So cultivate inner harmony, guard it, nourish it, keep it sacred. And you will discover that the more peaceful your inner world becomes, the more abundant your outer world grows. Not by effort, not by struggle, but by natural law. As within, so without. There is a sacred rhythm to creation that cannot be hurried, nor can it be forced. To manifest with power, you must learn to persist, not with frantic energy or obsession, but with quiet loyalty to the unseen. To persist is not to chase, and is certainly not to beg. It is to remain faithful to what you have already claimed as yours, even when the outer world gives you no sign. It is to walk in certainty while others wait for evidence. This is the heart of true manifestation, inner consistency without outer dependence. You do not need to repeat your desire like a chant in fear that the universe has forgotten you. You do not need to look for signs in every corner, hoping that something has shifted. You only need to keep your inner world stable, anchored in the knowing that what you have imagined is already a reality, not in the future, but in the present unseen. The desperate mind looks for proof. The faithful mind knows, and what you know internally must be expressed externally, for the outer is always the shadow of the inner. If you constantly dig up the seed to see if it has taken root, you kill the very life you planted. But if you trust, if you water it with belief and nurture it with peace, then it must grow. It has no choice. That is law. Let your vision be clear, but let your spirit be at ease. There is no need to obsess. Obsession comes from fear, the fear that it might not happen, that you must do more, try harder, watch closer. But manifestation is not born from fear. It is born from rest. It is born from the calm assurance that once imagined, once felt, the thing is set in motion. A bridge of incidents begins to form, whether you can see it or not. Doors begin to open, people are moved, events are reshuffled, and all of it is guided by your inner state. You are not required to build the bridge. You are only required to cross it when it appears. And it will appear unmistakably when you are in the right place inwardly. If you are restless, anxious, or constantly needing reassurance, then you delay what is already yours. But when you feel it real, and you remain there, not for a moment, but as a new identity, then the world bends, it cannot help it. Reality is obedient to the one who believes. This is not laziness, this is spiritual precision. To rest in faith is not to give up effort, but to direct effort where it matters most within. Every time you return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you give life to it again, you feed it, you energize it. But once fed, once felt, let it go, trust it is done. Think of it like sending a letter. Once mailed, you do not follow the postman to ensure it is delivered. You trust the system. The same is true here. Once your desire is impressed upon your subconscious, once your inner world is saturated with the knowing that it is yours, trust the system of life to deliver it. You may not know how it will happen, you do not need to. The how is never your concern. Your work is to know what and feel as if. From that, the rest follows. So persist, but persist gently. Persist with joy. Persist as one who already has, not one who still lacks. Let your inner dialogue reflect fulfillment. Let your emotions speak of peace. Let your imagination remain loyal, undisturbed by the senses. You're not waiting for the world is waiting for you to be steady, unwavering, complete. And when you are, what you seek must appear, not because you demanded it, but because you became it. I want to share with you a profound truth about what I call the state of divine solitude. For those who are chosen, those who carry a higher purpose, often find themselves walking a path of sacred isolation. In the Bible it states, many are called, but few are chosen. This is not mere poetry. This is a precise description of the spiritual law that governs those marked for a higher purpose. Let me share with you what I call the law of divine separation. When you are chosen for a greater purpose, you will often find yourself naturally separated from the common patterns of friendship and relationship that others take for granted. You see, most people make this fundamental error. They view their solitude as a punishment, their isolation as a curse. But I tell you this, your solitude is actually a sacred preparation, your isolation a divine protection. Consider what I call the state of heightened consciousness. The chosen ones operate at a frequency that naturally sets them apart. Their consciousness vibrates at a level that makes common relationships and friendships difficult to maintain. This is what the scripture means when it says, "Be ye not unequally yoked together." This is not about judgment or superiority. It's about vibrational alignment and spiritual compatibility. Let me share with you another profound aspect, what I call the law of conscious elevation. As your consciousness elevates, as your awareness expands, you naturally find yourself moving away from relationships that no longer match your frequency. Think about this deeply. When you are chosen, you enter what I call the state of divine preparation. Your solitude is not emptiness, it is fullness of purpose. Your isolation is not punishment, it is protection for your mission. Consider what happens in what I call the state of spiritual incubation. Just as a butterfly must undergo its transformation alone in its cocoon, the chosen ones must often undergo their spiritual transformation in solitude. This is what the Bible means when it says, "Come ye out from among them, and be ye separate." This separation is not about rejection of others. It's about alignment with your higher purpose. Let me share with you what I call the law of divine timing. Your period of solitude, your time without friends or relationships, is perfectly timed for your spiritual development and the fulfillment of your purpose. You see, while others may fill their lives with constant social interaction, the chosen ones are being prepared in solitude for something far greater than mere social connection. Consider what I call the state of sacred solitude. In this state, you are not truly alone. You are in communion with your higher self, with your divine purpose, with the infinite intelligence that chose you. Let me share with you what I call the state of divine focus. When you are chosen, your solitude becomes the lens through which your purpose becomes crystal clear, uninhibited by the distractions of casual relationships. In the Bible, it states, "Enter into thy closet and shut the door." This closet represents your state of sacred solitude, where the deepest revelations and transformations occur. Consider what I call the law of spiritual magnetism. Your heightened consciousness naturally repels those who vibrate at a different frequency. This is not rejection. It is divine protection and selection. This is what the scripture means when it says, "Touch not, taste not, handle not." The chosen ones must often abstain from common associations that would dilute their spiritual power. Let me share with you another profound dimension, what I call the state of consciousness. Your solitude marks you as distinct, not in a way of superiority, but in a way of divine purpose and specific calling. You see, most people make this crucial error. They desperately seek to belong, to fit in, to be part of the crowd. But I tell you this, the chosen ones are specifically selected to stand apart. Consider what I call the law of divine preservation. Your lack of friends and relationships is actually a preservation of your energy, your focus, your spiritual power for your higher purpose. This is what the Bible means when it says, "No man can serve two masters." You cannot serve both your divine purpose and the constant demands of surface-level relationships. Let me share with you what I call the state of spiritual incubation. Just as a seed must be buried alone in darkness before it can sprout, the chosen ones must often experience periods of profound solitude before their purpose can manifest. Think about this deeply. Your isolation creates what I call the vacuum of higher purpose. Nature abhors a vacuum, and this vacuum will be filled not with common relationships, but with divine connection and purpose. Consider what happens in what I call the state of divine preparation. Every moment of your solitude is actually preparing you for your greater purpose. Every instance of being alone is strengthening you for your mission. This is what the scripture means when it says, "He that is alone with God is in the majority." Your solitude is not isolation from connection, it is connection with the highest source. Let me share with you what I call the law of spiritual refinement. Just as gold must be refined by fire, the chosen ones must be refined by solitude, separated from all that would dilute their purpose. You see, while others find comfort in constant companionship, the chosen ones find their comfort in their connection with their higher purpose, their divine mission. Consider what I call the state of sacred separation. This separation is not a punishment, but a privilege, not a curse, but blessing that allows you to maintain your spiritual frequency. Let me share with you what I call the state of divine singularity. Your solitude is actually a mark of your unique mission, your singular purpose in the grand tapestry of existence. In the Bible, it states narrow is the way, and few there be that find it. This narrowness represents the focused path of the chosen ones, a path that naturally excludes the many for the sake of the divine purpose. Consider what I call the law of spiritual authenticity. When you are chosen, you cannot maintain superficial relationships or friendships that require you to dim your light or lower your frequency. This is what the scripture means when it says, "Let your light so shine before men." The chosen ones cannot hide their light for the comfort of others, which often leads to natural separation. Let me share with you another profound aspect, what I call the state of conscious elevation. As your consciousness rises, you naturally find yourself unable to engage in the small talk, the drama, the surface level interactions that most friendships require. You see, most people make this fundamental error. They think loneliness and solitude are the same thing. But I tell you this, loneliness is the absence of others, while solitude is the presence of your higher self. Consider what I call the law of divine protection. Your lack of close relationships is actually a form of spiritual protection, keeping you focused on your mission and shielded from energies that would derail your purpose. This is what the Bible means when it says, "Come out from among them and be a separate." This separation is not rejection, but protection, not isolation, but insulation. Let me share with you what I call the state of spiritual intensity. The chosen ones carry such intense spiritual energy that most people naturally keep their distance, sensing something they don't understand. Think about this deeply, or solitude creates what I call the crucible of transformation. Just as metal must be heated alone to be transformed, the chosen ones must often undergo their transformation in solitude. Consider what happens in what I call the state of divine alignment. Every moment spent alone is actually a moment spent aligning more perfectly with your higher purpose, your divine mission. This is what the scripture means when it says, "But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet." Your solitude is your prayer closet, your place of deepest communion with your divine purpose. Let me share with you what I call the law of spiritual magnetism. Your high frequency naturally repels those who vibrate at a lower frequency, not through any conscious choice, but through spiritual law. You see, while others seek constant companionship to feel complete, the chosen ones find their completion in their connection with their divine purpose. Consider what I call the state of sacred solitude. In this state, you are never truly alone. You are in constant communion with the infinite intelligence that chose you for your specific mission. Let me share with you what I call the state of divine discernment. Your solitude sharpens your ability to discern truth from illusion, genuine connections from superficial ones. In the Bible it states, "Be still and know that I am God." This stillness, this solitude becomes your gateway to the deepest, knowing the highest understanding. Consider what I call the law of spiritual acceleration. When you are free from the distractions of casual relationships and friendships, your spiritual growth accelerates at an unprecedented rate. This is what the scripture means when it says, "And Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." The chosen ones must often withdraw from the world to maintain their connection with their higher purpose. Let me share with you another profound dimension, what I call the state of conscious purification. Your solitude serves as a purifying force, cleansing you of attachments that would hinder your spiritual mission. You see, most people make this crucial error. They think relationships and friendships are meant to complete them. But I tell you this, the chosen ones are already complete in their divine purpose. Consider what I call the law of divine timing. Your period of solitude is perfectly timed, preparing you for a purpose that requires your complete focus and undivided attention. This is what the Bible means when it says, "To everything there is a season." Your season of solitude is as divinely ordained as any other season in your life. Let me share with you what I call the state of spiritual intensity. The chosen ones carry such concentrated spiritual energy that it naturally creates a space around them, a buffer zone that few can penetrate. Hike about this deeply, or solitude creates what I call the vacuum of higher consciousness. This vacuum cannot be filled by ordinary relationships or friendships. It can only be filled by divine purpose. Consider what happens in what I call the state of divine preparation. Every moment spent alone is actually a moment spent in preparation for your greater purpose, your higher calling. This is what the scripture means when it says, "Many are called, but few are chosen." The very state of being chosen often requires a separation from the many, a walking apart from the crowd. Let me share with you what I call the law of spiritual resonance. You naturally attract or repel others based on your spiritual frequency as a chosen one. Your frequency is often too high for most to maintain prolonged contact. You see, while others find their comfort in numbers, the chosen ones find their comfort in purpose, in mission, in divine connection. Consider what I call the state of sacred solitude. In this state, you are never truly alone. You are in constant communion with the infinite intelligence that selected you for your specific purpose. Let me share with you what I call the state of divine amplification. In your solitude powers, your intuition, your connection to higher conscious becomes amplified without the interference of others' energies. In the Bible, it states, "When thou prayest, enter into thy closet." This closet represents not just physical solitude, but the sacred space where your powers are amplified through isolation. Consider what I call the law of spiritual preservation. Your lack of close relationships acts as your spiritual energy, keeping it pure and focused for your divine purpose. This is what the scripture means when it says, "Cast not your pearls before swine." The chosen ones must often withhold their deepest truths, their highest wisdom, which naturally creates distance from others. Let me share with you another profound aspect, what I call the state of conscious elevation. As your consciousness rises higher and higher, you naturally find yourself operating at a frequency that few can match or maintain. You see, most people make this fundamental error. They think connection means constant company. But I tell you this, the deepest connection often requires profound solitude. Consider what I call the law of divine protection. Your solitude serves as a protective shield, preventing the dilution of your spiritual energy by those who cannot understand or support your mission. This is what the Bible means when it says, "A prophet is not without honor, save in his own country." The chosen ones often find themselves set apart, even from those closest to them. Let me share with you what I call the state of spiritual intensity. Your very presence carries such concentrated spiritual energy that it naturally creates distance, not through any conscious choice, but through spiritual law. Think about this deeply. Your solitude creates what I call the crucible of transforming. Just as gold must be refined alone in the fire, the chosen ones must often undergo their transformation in isolation. Consider what happens in what I call the state of divine alignment. Every moment spent alone is actually a moment spent aligning more perfectly with your cosmic purpose, your divine mission. This is what the scripture means when it says, "The stone which the builders rejected has become the head of the corner." Your very rejection by others is often a sign of your selection by the divine. Let me share with you what I call the law of spiritual magnetism. Your high frequency naturally repels those operating at lower frequencies, not through any conscious choice, but through immutable spiritual law. You see, while others seek constant companionship to feel whole, the chosen ones find the wholeness in their connection with their divine purpose. Consider what I call the state of sacred solitude. In this state, you are never truly alone. You are in constant communion with the infinite intelligence that chose you for your specific mission. Let me share with you what I call the state of divine uniqueness. Your solitude is actually a marker of your unique spiritual fingerprint, your singular purpose that sets you apart from the masses. In the Bible, it states you are a peculiar people. This peculiarity, this uniqueness naturally creates a space between you and those who walk more common paths. Consider what I call the law of spiritual resonance. Your energy vibrates at such a specific frequency that it naturally creates distance from those who cannot match or maintain that frequency. This is what the scripture means when it says, "In the world, but not of it." The chosen ones must maintain their presence in the world while operating at a fundamentally different level of consciousness. Let me share with you another profound dimension, what I call the state of conscious elevation. As your awareness expands, you naturally find yourself unable to engage in the surface level interactions that most relationships require. You see, most people make this crucial error. They think isolation is a form of punishment, but I tell you this, for the chosen ones, isolation is often the highest form of preparation. Consider what I call the law of divine timing. Your season of solitude is perfectly orchestrated, preparing you for a purpose that requires your complete focus and undivided attention. This is what the Bible means when it says there is a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. Your time of solitude is as divinely ordained as any other season in your life. Let me share with you what I call the state of spiritual intensity. The chosen ones carry such concentrated spiritual energy that it naturally creates a buffer zone around them, a space that few can penetrate. Think about this deeply. Your solitude creates what I call the vacuum of higher purpose. This vacuum cannot be filled by ordinary relationships or friendships. It can only be filled by divine connection. Consider what happens in what I call the state of divine preparation. Every moment spent alone is actually a moment spent in preparation for your greater purpose, your higher calling. This is what the scripture means when it says, "Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee." Your solitude is part of a divine plan that was set in motion long before your earthly existence. Let me share with you what I call the law of spiritual preservation. Your lack of close relationships actually preserves your spiritual energy, keeping it pure and focused for your divine purpose. You see, while others find their comfort in numbers, the chosen ones find their comfort in purpose, in mission, in divine connection. Consider what I call the state of sacred solitude. In this state, you are never truly alone. You are in constant communion with the infinite intelligence that selected you for your specific purpose. Let me share with you what I call the state of divine magnetism. Your very essence carries a frequency that naturally attracts some while repelling others, creating what appears to be isolation, but is actually perfect spiritual alignment. In the Bible, it states, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." This fundamental difference in consciousness naturally creates separation from those operating at different frequencies. Consider what I call the law of spiritual ascension. As you ascend in consciousness, you naturally find yourself moving away from relationships that no longer serve your higher purpose. This is what the scripture means when it says, "Can two walk together except they be agreed?" The chosen ones often find themselves walking alone because few can agree with or understand their path. Let me share with you another profound aspect, what I call the state of conscious refinement. Your solitude serves as a refining fire, burning away all that is not aligned with your divine purpose. You see, most people make this fundamental error. They think being alone means being lonely. But I tell you this, for the chosen ones, being alone often means being in the most profound company, the company of divine purpose. Consider what I call the law of divine protection. Your apparent isolation is actually a protective barrier, shielding you from energies and influences that would dilute your spiritual power. This is what the Bible means when it says, "Come out from among them and be ye separate." This separation is not a punishment, but a privilege, not a curse, but a blessing. Let me share with you what I call the state of spiritual acceleration. Your solitude creates an environment where your spiritual growth can proceed unimpeded by the slower vibrations of others. I think about this deeply. Your aloneness creates what I call the crucible of transformation. Just as a diamond must be formed under intense pressure and in isolation, so must the chosen ones undergo their transformation alone. Consider what happens in what I call the state of divine alignment. Every moment spent in solitude is actually a moment spent in perfect alignment with your cosmic purpose. This is what the scripture means when it says, "When he shall appear, we shall be like him." Your isolation is preparing you for a manifestation of divine likeness that requires complete focus. Let me share with you what I call the law of spiritual resonance. Your high frequency naturally creates distance from those who cannot match or maintain that frequency. You see, while others seek constant companionship to feel complete, the chosen ones find their completion in their connection with their divine purpose. Consider what I call the state of sacred solitude. In this state, you are never truly alone. You are in constant communion with the infinite intelligence that chose you for your specific mission.